Welcome to the Brook Church podcast. Our hope is that today's message brings you hope and clarity for your spiritual journey. We love hearing how God is working in your life. Feel free to share any stories of how this message gave you a new perspective and hope. Email us at church@rockbrook.org to tell your story.
I'm Pastor Don. I'm the children's ministry pastor here. I've been here for 16 and a half years. As the children's pastor. And today I want to talk to us about the 10th and final commandment of this very strong series, Old Rules for a New Life. Like me, several of you may be thinking about the first 9. Hey, I've done all right. Welcome to the 10th. Let's read it together. You must not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. All right, now let's read it together, okay? You must not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. All right, thank you. Have you ever wondered what the ellipsis in something is for? That would be these 3 periods that says, I left something out that I don't want to talk about. Okay, that's what that means in a public forum. Well, today, if you will allow me this ADD moment to chase down this rabbit hole, I want to look at this verse without the ellipsis in its entirety and talk about it. It's in your bulletin. It says, you must not covet your neighbor's house. You must not covet your neighbor's wife, male or female servant, ox or donkey, or anything else that belongs to your neighbor. What has been left out are specific examples of the neighbor's things that we could possibly covet. But those details are not the point of the sermon today. Yet, they have a connection to another very important idea in the scriptures, and that's on the nature of temptation. It's defined in 1 John chapter 2, and it's illustrated primarily in the Old Testament in Genesis 3 with Eve and the serpent in the garden. In the New Testament in Matthew chapter 4 on the temptation of the Christ where Jesus and the devil are in the wilderness. Let me make a few connections between 1 John 2 and Exodus 20. I'm going to read for us 1 John 2 beginning at verse 15. Do not love the world or anything in the world. For if anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and its desires will pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. I'm going to have you draw 6 circles this morning, 3 in each of these texts. In Exodus 20:17, I want you to circle the word house, circle the word wife, circle the phrase male and female servant, ox or donkey. It'd be more oblong than round. In 1 John 2:16, circle the phrases lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. 6 circles, 3 in each verse. Let's draw some lines. Let's put this together. Here we go. From the word house, I want you to draw a line to the lust of the eyes. Every morning I get up and I look at my neighbor's greener grass than mine. I've gone by some houses where the deck is spectacular. There's even copper gutters. It's just awesome. The lust of the eyes. The lust of the flesh connect to the word wife. I would have defined that, but we had a great sermon on that about 2 ago, okay? And I believe the 6th commandment. So I'm going to just pass, and you can just check that out. And then from male or female servant, ox or donkey, draw that line to the pride of life. And here's what I know you're asking. How does that represent the pride of life? Well, it's very cultural. In that day and age, in that culture, their portfolio was measured in how big the herd was. Okay, their investment strategy was in herds and flocks, and also in male and female slaves. That was part of how somebody displayed their wealth. And that is what they could, if they chose to do so pridefully, they could march their herds or their servants through town and everybody would go, ooh, the pride of life. All right. Temptation is a great study, and it's very important, but it's not the topic of today's sermon. Let's introduce what we've got. Thank you, I lost my place. We live in a world designed to make us happy and unhappy and discontent. TV commercials bombard us with unhappy messages all the time. Our clothes are faded and not really clean. Look at the ultraviolet light. Last year's vehicle, well, it's just so last year's. You should see the new one. If you wear our shoes, you'll jump higher, you'll run faster. Lots of things that bombard us should tell us that we should be unhappy with what we have. And then there's social media. Well, social media is the longest running one-upsmanship in the history of the world. You think the picture of your sandwich looked good? Look at mine. It came with fries. You think the picture of your fish was nice? Look at the one I caught. Okay. Oh, your husband gave you flowers? Mine gave me a new car. Your vacation to Silver Dollar City? Oh, that was cool. We went to Disney World. And so the chain has continued for a couple of decades now. The world for which we've created for ourselves is a world that is unhappy and never satisfied. But that's not unique to social media. Television before that was the environment for greediness. And even before television, people still coveted their neighbor's stuff. Even before our modern electronic media brought it into our privacy of our screens. So let's see what it means to covet. Let's take a look at some definitions. First of all, to covet means an excessive desire for what I don't have. An excessive desire. Circle that word excessive. It literally means to be pawing at, to be thrashing for, to be gnawing after. Okay? That's the level we're talking about. Envious desire. Envy for the things that others have. Well, we know envy is one of the 7 deadly sins mentioned in the book of Proverbs. Both of these demonstrate a lack of self-control. The word desire isn't the bad word here. Desire can be a good thing. It can be a motivational factor for us. I desire to eat, therefore I work. Okay? A desire can push us to do good things. Write this down. Coveting is a dangerous game. How does coveting hurt us? Let's take a look. We're going to highlight 4 ways this morning that coveting, materialism, the pursuit of stuff can be harmful to us. Number 1 is worry. Jesus said, do not worry. Is not your life more important than gourmet food? And the body more important than designer clothes? Your translation doesn't say that? I helped that out a little bit. The fact that we focus on things, we start to worry about them. We worry that we don't have enough of them. And then we worry that we have to keep them. Coveting is a dangerous game. Secondly, coveting brings fatigue. Solomon the wise said in Proverbs 23, do not wear yourself out to be rich. Have the wisdom to show restraint. In the frantic rush to get ahead, we become tired, and fatigue just robs us of our joys. The Bible says, slow down. It's easy to wear yourself down trying to get rich. Listen carefully to what I'm not saying. Okay? I'm not saying you don't work overtime or 2 or 3 jobs even just to survive. I'm not saying that. I have lived that life. I have been there. I was a full-time pastor of a small church preparing 4 messages a week. I also needed to work with a construction contractor 3 days a week. And 2 nights a week I taught at a tech college. It was tiresome. It was wearisome. But I was not wearing myself out to buy the next shiny thing, but to keep food on the table and the table under a roof. I did what I needed to take care of my family. Okay? We're not talking about that this morning. We're talking about the envious. We're talking about the strong desire to move ahead. Wisdom is knowing when you have what you need and when you can stop trying to acquire more and enjoy what you have. Coveting is a dangerous game. The third problem is depression. Paul says in Timothy, some men in the struggle to get rich have lost their faith and have caused themselves untold agonies of the mind. That even sounds terrible, doesn't it? Agonies of the mind? When we discover we can't have it all, oftentimes that disappointment lends us to depression and other mental maladies. Coveting is a dangerous game. And last today, from 1 Timothy 6:10, it causes many and various problems. The love of money, says Paul, is the root of all kinds of evil. Please note it doesn't say money is the root of all evil, but the love of money. So circle that. Circle the love of money is what brings all kinds and many various evils. God is not opposed to wealth. He is only opposed to the worship of wealth. You see, coveting can lead to breaking all of the 10 commandments. It's the root of all kinds of evils. People will lie, cheat, steal, commit adultery, even forsake God himself because they're chasing after stuff and more trophies and just more money in life. The love of money causes many and various problems. Coveting is a dangerous game. Now, before we flip the coin to the other side, we're going to take 3 quick quizzes, and I need 2 volunteers that have been pre-selected, not knowing what they're doing. Come on up. They are going to join me on stage. Okay, I haven't prepped them on anything. Okay. Mackenzie and Hunter, right? Yeah. Nice. We'll start with Mackenzie. Mackenzie, do you like Snicker bars? Oh, good. You're the first one in the 4 of the previous ones. Yeah, they've been good for you. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Do you see 2 Snicker bars on this? Okay, that's 2 out of 4 questions. You're doing great. Okay. These are my Snicker bars, and I'm going to give them to you. Which one do you want? Don't overthink this.
So if I take the bigger one, it's not going to be that I was supposed to take this one?
Don't overthink this. This is not a trap. Thank you. I want to say Mackenzie is the first one of 5 that has done the right thing, that has done the honest thing, and I'm very grateful for that. Very good. Now, Mackenzie, what I'm going to do, because I'm just a nice guy, I'm going to give you the little one too. However, you've got to give that to somebody who's not Hunter and just give it to somebody and bless them with it today. And thank you. You can be seated. Now, later, doesn't matter. I'm talking to him next, so you can talk to anybody you want. Hunter, do you like Snickers bars? Yep. Hey, this is awesome. It's working just the way it's supposed to. Do you see 2 Snicker bars on here? Yeah. Which one of those would you like? I didn't say take. I said, which one would you like? The big one. Exactly. Really? Why would anybody choose the small one? I still don't get that. Joel, your kids. I'm prepared to give you the little one. If you would like the big one, you've got to work for it. Do you know the English counting system that starts 1, 2, 3? Yeah. Can you go from 7 to 3 counting backwards?
7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Awesome. You get the one that you want. Thank you very much. You can be seated. See, that wasn't too hard, was it? Yeah, give them a hand. They did great. Now, because they chose the big bars, were they being selfish, snotty-nosed, bratty people that says, gimme, gimme, gimme? Think about your answer, because my answer is no. No. For Mackenzie, They were my candy bars. I offered her a gift. She chose the one that she wanted. It was mine to give to her. It was a gift. She may have had the desire for the big one, but taking it was not being selfish. I offered it to her. For Hunter, I didn't offer him the big one, even though he wanted that. But he had to work for it. Hunter earned that bar, okay? And that's an important distinction. He desired it. Yes, he did. But he also earned that bar. So far, the first two tests are going pretty good. Test number 3. When does desire cross over into covetousness? Well, if you've spent the last 20 seconds wondering how you can come and by the stage and swipe that last Snickers bar, it's crossed to covetousness, okay? Just 3 tests. So let's think about what it takes to beat the habit of covetousness. I want us to read together from Philippians chapter 4 and verse 11. I'll go slow this time. Read it loud. Here we go. For I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. That is awesome. When I was preparing for the sermon and read this verse, it was like the sun coming up in the morning. It dawned on me that if we wanted to be content, it was something that we could learn. Circle the word learned. Any spiritual discipline does not come naturally. Any spiritual discipline has to come through a plan and the exercise of that discipline. The Bible lists perhaps up to 10 strategies for developing commitment, but we're only going to look at 5 today, so here we go. Number 1, be grateful and enjoy what you have. Be grateful and enjoy what you have. Saying thank you is not a small thing. Saying thank you to Jesus and others is something that should happen often. We will never be content if we're constantly grabbing for more. Paul tells us in Timothy, godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and we will take nothing out of it. But if you have food and clothing, be content with what you have. I can guarantee you that my children came into this world empty-handed. I was there. They came in with nothing. Okay? As did we. We came with nothing. We will leave with nothing. Contentment doesn't come from greater wealth, but it comes from fewer wants. Being content begins by being grateful and enjoying what you already have. Everything you have today is a blessing and an upgrade from what you brought into this world. Be thankful. Number 2, don't compare yourselves to others. Comparing always leads to coveting. Paul says it to the Corinthians. He says, we do not dare classify or compare ourselves with somebody who compares themselves. When they measure themselves by themselves and compare, they are not wise. He said it's foolish to compare yourself with someone else. Why do we even do that? Well, we do that because we're insecure. We want to look at somebody else and say, how am I doing compared to them? Do I measure up? Do I stack up to how they're doing? We compare everything. We compare cars, homes, clothes, salaries. We even compare our spouse and kids. We constantly want to compare, and that robs us of the joy that we could possess. God just says, don't do it. You'll see it gets us into trouble. When we're comparing ourselves to others, we're buying things that we don't need with money that we don't have to impress people we don't even like. So what should we do when we look around in our lives and we see somebody or we know somebody who has a lot more money, a lot more fame, a lot more stuff than we do? Let me give you just a simple life hack here. The Bible writer, Paul, says it best. He says, rejoice with those that rejoice. Okay, when you are with your friend who has obviously a lot more than you do, celebrate with them. Celebrate their vacation. Celebrate their new cars, their big house, their promotion at work, their big trophies, their awesome experience. Celebrate. We are to rejoice with those who rejoice, the Apostle Paul tells us. The key to knowing somebody with means, just be genuinely happy for their success. Number 3, recognize the limitations of wealth. Money and stuff cannot deliver all that it promises. The promised happiness of the new and shiny quickly fades away, and even oftentimes before we're done paying for it. Consider the words of Jesus in Ecclesiastes. He who loves money shall never have enough. The foolishness of thinking that wealth brings happiness. The more you have, the more you spend, right up to the limit of your income. That was obviously written before credit cards. Okay? Right now, the average American is spending about between 113% and 117% of their income. Okay? That is not a good situation. When it comes to happiness, wealth is not the key. Number 4, focus on relationships, not things. Again, from Solomon's Proverbs, better to be poor and reverence the Lord than to be rich and in trouble. Better to eat your veggies with people who love than to eat the finest meat where there is hate. We've all seen people who are both affluent and miserable. It's relationships that brings happiness. Happiness doesn't come from things. Proverbs continues and says, a greedy man brings trouble to his family. Because in our race for riches, marriages are breaking apart. Children are being raised by surrogates, and under the excuse that we want to provide them with nice things. And in reality, most kids would much rather have you in their life than your gifts. Focus on relationships. Maturity is knowing when to stop the pursuit, when to say we have enough, and when the energy should be spent on the people in our life. Number 5, become a regular and consistent giver. Why did Jesus talk so much about money? Do you know that he talked about money more than he did about heaven and hell combined? Well, Jesus would talk about giving because giving is the antidote for materialism. It's the cure for coveting. Ask yourself this simple question. Is it hard for me to give money away? If the answer to that is yes, check your values. Perhaps it means I'm holding on to money and things too tightly. Giving is the ultimate test that reveals my attitude toward money and materialism. Here's some help on giving. From 1 Corinthians 16:2. On each Sunday, each of you should put aside some of what you've earned during the week and give it as an offering. The amount depends on how much the Lord has helped you to earn. A couple things on giving. Number 1, it's not spontaneous. It's intentional and it involves planning. Jesus starts by saying, set aside some money. We just simply call that budget. Okay? Put in your budget your giving. How much? Well, it depends on how much you earn. It should also be proportional. The Bible speaks regularly about a tithe, which is a 10% gift back to Jesus. Think it out, pray it out, then plan it out. Be systematic. Why should I do this every week or every other week? Because every time I write a giving check, it reminds me that money is not the most important thing in my life, and I can give it away. Let me expose a fallacy about giving, about the idea of tithing. We tell ourselves sometimes, oh, when I make more money, it'll be easier to tithe. Well, that has never been my experience. Never. When I graduated from high school, I quit my after-school local business job and started working in a steel fabrication plant. My last check at the local business was $39. My tithe equated to $3.90. I had no problem putting a 5 or 10 in the offering plate when it'd go by. I would certainly give my tithe plus. But when I received my first big boy check, over $720 for 2 weeks, my tithe was $72. Up to that point in my 17-year-old life, my first adult tithe check was the biggest check I had ever written. It was difficult. It was difficult. I was so happy that I had the habit of tithing before I started getting my big boy checks. Learn to give generously. It breaks our hold on money, and perhaps even more importantly, it breaks money's hold on us. So let's say today you realize that covetousness has got a bit of a hold on you. What have we learned? Well, we've learned that coveting is a dangerous game, but we've also learned that it's possible and beneficial to learn to be content. Let me offer you a 3-step progression to help move from coveting to contentment. We find it in the box at the bottom page of your notes. Let's take a look. It's called the replacement principle. Inside this box, we're going to see a verse. We're going to read it out loud. It's Paul's writing to the Ephesians in verse 4 and 28. It says, let's go together. If you are a thief, quit stealing. Instead, use your hands for good, hard work, and then give generously. Give generously. Oh, did I miss something? I did. I'm sorry. You guys who kept reading, good for you. Good for you. All right, because that actually is important, but good. So I'm sorry I missed that. Let's take, we take a look at that. Now let's see what the 3 categories are. We have the first category, which is an action to avoid. Second, this is what we're to stop doing. An attitude to adopt. This is how we start thinking, okay? Thinking is a very important part. And then the action to habitualize. It was very hard for me to keep that H there because this was A to A, and this one went A to H. And I just wanted to drop it, just capitalize the A. But my spell checker wouldn't let me move on. These 3 progressions, you have to do all 3. 2 out of 3 are not good enough. You will fail in the replacement principle if you don't do all 3. Let's look at Paul's illustration from this verse. If you're a thief, stop it. Actions to avoid, stop stealing. Instead, use your hands for good, hard work. Attitude to adopt, I need to work hard. And then the action to habitualize is to give generously to others in need, okay? Give to others. Let's put this in the context of you must not covet anything that belongs to your neighbor. I want to remind us, excessive desire for what, coveting is the excessive desire for what I don't have, the envious desire for what others have, and coveting is a dangerous game. Contentment is possible. I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. Let's take a look at our 3 steps. Actions to avoid, no greed. Stop being greedy. Attitude to adopt, just a grateful heart and spirit. An action to habitualize is to be generous. You need to give. And you do those things, and you're on your way to breaking covetousness's hold on you and being free to be content. Let's pray together. Jesus, help us to be able to set aside the greediness in our life, the hold that money and stuff has on us. Change our hearts and our minds. Help us to be grateful, so grateful for the blessings that we've received. And then, Jesus, I pray that you will give us many ways to be generous. Generous to you and the church, generous to our family, generous to our friends and neighbors. And it's in your name I pray, Lord Jesus. Amen.
Thanks for joining us today. We would love for you to get connected to what's going on at Rockbrook Church. Visit us online at rockbrook.org for service times, small group information, and other ways you can discover your purpose here on earth.